Shalom. I want to start off by giving all the praise and glory to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Hashem, Wach Chodesh. It belongs to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Muslim, and salutations to you, Akim, that's out there listening, pushing forth this word with truth and sincerity, and your few Akwat as well, that's listening with sincerity. I am the brother Machaya from the camp, GMS Montreal, coming back with another lesson. And we have to learn how to control our spirit, okay? Having being able to control your temper whenever you get angry, things of that nature, being hasty. We got to learn how to control these things, not act upon impulse, but rather, make decisions with a sober mind and just, make wise decisions, man. Especially if you're angry. When you're angry, it's best to take a step back and analyze the situation before you make your next move, man. Because you might do something that you do not want to do. Okay, and then afterwards, you regret your decision. You don't want that to happen, man. You know? So let's get this in Proverbs. Um, take city. Bear with me for a minute. There we go. It says here, Proverbs 16 and verse 32. It says, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh the city. See, if you're able to rule your spirit, you're better than a mighty soldier that takes over a city, man. You know what I'm saying? Because, once again, you gotta be able to guard yourself against these spirits, man. You know what I'm saying? These people, they're completely filled with spirits, bro, with demons and shit. And then they'll say, Satan will come upon them to aggravate you, to make you act upon your impulses, man. You know? These people, man, they ain't straight in the mind. They're beast-like, because what? They're not in the truth. They're beast-like, man. So with you knowing that, are you supposed to move with more cautious and wisdom and just, walk in the spirit and then see whenever somebody's pissing you off, hey, this is Satan, man. Satan jumps on this guy to mess with my day. Okay, let me just, uh, uh, give a soft answer or, ignore this guy and then, go on about my day, man. But if you tap into that, you know what I'm saying, you let yourself get caught up in the flesh. Now you're arguing with this guy, and now it turns into a physical altercation, you know, then now you're through. Right? Which there's certain situations, man, you just can't avoid. That's why Apostle Paul said, um, if it be possible, live peaceably with all men. At certain times, man, certain demons just say you gotta slap them up a little bit for them to flee. If someone comes in your personal space and then what's it called, threatens you, of course you have to stand your ground and be a man and defend yourself. He puts his hands on you and shit. Yeah, you might have to slap him, give him a punch back or push him back, whatever. You know what I mean? But it all depends on the situation. If it's an altercation with let's say a police officer or whatever, and then he's treating you wrong, he might mistreat you or slap you around for no reason. You're not gonna go and slap him back. Then now you're facing a charge of assaulting a fellow police officer. You know what I'm saying? That's just it's just things to think about, man. To learn how to control your anger, to rule your spirit, you know. And we touched on this topic at camp yesterday, and it was still fresh in my mind. I figured, why not cut the camera and make a lesson on this, man? Because we also brought out, staying in that same example with a police officer. Let's say if he's mistreating you, he might throw a sneak attack on you, whatever, slap you, or he's dealing with you rough. In other words, you know. Well, with you having this wisdom, being a servant of the Most High, you understand that. Yeah, I'm saying you got to obey them that have rule over you. Yeah, I'm saying obey basically to the police officers, man. Romans 13. You know, you obey, right? And if you did get mistreated, let the Lord handle it, right? Just like I brought us this example I came to, just like Apostle Paul, when he got when that Roman official or officers slapped him, what did he say? He said, "The Most High smite thee." The Apostle Paul, you know what I'm saying, throw a left hook, boom, rocked his jaw. Nah, man, he let the Lord handle it. You know. Let's see if I can find that. The Lord smite thee, man. Let's get that, man. Uh, Damn. Let's write the word smite. I know it's like in the book of Acts. Bear with me. We must get this. There you go. This is Acts 23. We'll start at verse 23. At verse 1. So like, yeah. And Paul, earnestly beholding the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before the Most High until this day. And the high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth. So it was actually Jakes. It was Jakes, that was, in high authority. Let me correct that. You know what I'm saying? That was in high authority that smite him. Okay? You know what I'm saying? Probably like, Jakes that was, um, under the high priest Ananias. I don't know what their position was, but regardless, most likely they were in a position of, of high authority to where that, they were the leaders, you may say, quote, quote, of the nation. You know what I'm saying? So Ananias, which is the high priest, he commanded them that stood back to smite him, to slap him, you know? Then said Paul unto him, The Most High shall smite thee, thou whited wall, for sittest thou to judge me after the law, and commandest me to be smitten contrary to the law? You know what I'm saying? So he said, The Lord smite you. You know what I'm saying? You pretended ruler, you high priest. You know what I'm saying? Right? You're sitting to judge me after the law, but what? You're commanding them to smite me against the law. So you're not being a fair judge. Basically, that's what he's saying. But he did. Apostle Paul didn't get up and go and he slapped the high priest and the nice, or the servant or whoever Jake that was that slapped him. No, he used wisdom. You see what I'm saying? Because imagine if you got, physical. Things would have escalated, man. You know? Things would have escalated and then now there's a scrap. You're like, okay, you must be put to death immediately. You know? And then what? We're going to miss out on certain letters of Apostle Paul, man. Just putting it into perspective. All right? Learn how to control your spirit, control your anger, control your temper. Not acting upon impulse, because when you act upon impulse, that's just basically you letting your flesh and your emotions lead you. Don't let that happen, man. You know what I'm saying? It says if you don't have control of your spirit, you're like a city without walls, man. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be that. You don't want to be exposed. This is Proverbs 25 and verse 28. It says, He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. You see, if you don't have rule over your spirit, you're like a city that is broken down without walls, man. You do not want to be that. You don't want to be a city that's broken down without walls. That means it's easy for enemies to infiltrate and take down your city, man. Okay, and what's that enemy that's going to infiltrate? Them demons, man. Okay? Satan knows your weaknesses, man. Satan knows if you have a short temper, if you tend to, make hasty decisions. He knows that. And he's going to pick on those certain things and let you give in to that, man. And with you knowing yourself, hey, aren't you supposed to fix up as best as you can those weaknesses? Put your guard up, analyze situations and knowing, oh, this is Satan fucking with me, man. Let me chill. Let me calm down, man. Let me not let this guy get into my head, man. You know, every day, man, we're out here battling these forces of evil, man. Scriptures say how that we're battling spiritual wickedness in high places. You know, every day. So with knowing that, you gotta guard your spirit. Be slow to wrath. You know, control your emotions. Because if you can't control your emotions, that's a trait of being effeminate, man. You know, because what females don't know how to control their emotions. They get mood swings. You know, however that they feel. Uh, that's how they make their decisions. No, we're men. We're men of the Lord. Okay? There's no room for all these feelings and I feel like this, that. Scripture say, gird up your loins like a man. Be a man. Okay, men are rational. We're rational. We're analytic. We analyze things and we make rational decisions with a sober mind. Okay? You know what I'm saying? Don't give in to these demons, man. Okay? Because their job is to make you fall. You know? Their job is to tempt you. Their job is to make you get out of your nature, in other words. You know what I'm saying? And you know, we all been in situations where we behaved hastily, you know, we made decisions based upon wrath or anger, and then later you come to regret it. Like, fuck, why did I do that, man? Damn, now I made my situation worse. We all done that, man. You know, because you know we're men, we're in the flesh. Of course, mistakes are gonna happen, but it's a matter of fixing them. You know, not giving room for Satan to basically keep on using the same tactic, and then you know, falling victim to it, man. You know, we can't. We're at the end, man. We don't have time to fall for the same tactics of Satan, man. You know, talking about the spiritual demon Satan. We don't have time to fall for the same tactics, man. You know, once he comes with it, you learn it, and then you fix it, and you move on to the next. Can't be falling for the same tricks, man. Come on, bro. You're an Israelite, like the elder in Chicago says. You know, Elder Jeremiah. You're an Israelite, man. You know what I mean? But anyways, man, you know, this was still fresh in my spirit. You know, I just wanted, you know what I'm saying, to bring back the point, man. Because, you know, these things are indeed important, man. You know, it can't be a beast and act upon your impulses. But yeah, that's the point, man. Yeah, I'm saying I'm going to close it off there, man. By giving all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wakach, Kodash. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Until next time, I'm going to say Shalom.